Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.
Good morning everyone. Today we are going to have the Hindu analysis of 7th July 2021. Let us see which are the important articles from today's The Hindu newspaper. Yes, these are the important articles for mains related articles on page number 6 and 7 and prelims related articles on this side. Let us take overview of all these articles, then we will discuss them one by one. So yes, mains related articles. First, on page number 6 there is one article talking about the federalism, the fresh stirring on federalism as new politics. Though we can understand after reading this particular article, one may get idea that it is having some kind of political aspects, but we have to understand federalism is important, let's say characteristics of our Indian constitution, and therefore what are the issues at present regarding federalism. Some issues you should be aware about them. So GS2 paper polity part, accordingly we have to take input here. Then vacancies send a wrong signal on page number 7, op-ed page. This particular article, it is talking about recently many such important statutory as well as constitutional bodies remained headless for long period of time, right? So heads of these organizations like NCRT, CBI or even CEC retired, or such organizations, head or chairman of NHRC, the head of or chairman of these bodies that remained vacant for long period of time, how it affects the morale of civil servants or those, let's say, bureaucrats, along with that the overall working of organizations. This is important for GS2 paper polity part, as well as we are expecting such kind of question from public administration optional subject. Okay, now the remaining articles on page number 6, the editorial and all, that is not relevant to our examination. That's why we are not discussing. Some of them are political in nature, or some international issues which are not having impact on India are being discussed. So that is not relevant to our examination. So that's why we are skipping those articles here. Specifically for prelims examination, here Ethiopia resumes filling disputed dam on page number 11, world page. This particular article, it is talking about GERD, Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Okay, this has been in news last year also. There is continuous dispute going on regarding this dam between three countries, Ethiopia, Sudan and Egypt, over the building of this dam across Blue Nile River in Ethiopia. So what is this GERD, that dam, location of that dam and the concerns, then Nile River. So from geography aspect, mapping part, every year 1 or 2 questions are asked in prelims examination from this mapping part. So we need to understand about Nile River also, important rivers of different continents. Yes. Second, Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights on page number 1, first page, it is talking about the concerns regarding those people arrested or those in jail because of that Bhima Koregaon violence that happened few years back. So human rights body of United Nations, this Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights. What is this body? So this is important from prelims examination. International organizations, UN bodies, their basics we need to know about. Then amid cabinet reshuffle buzz, 8 states get new governors. So which are the states who got this new governors? Yes, it is additional information. Surely there will not be factual question like this, who is appointed as the governor of which state or something like that. But yes, basic information about governor, how the person is appointed, what is the constitutional status, all these things we will discuss here. And lastly, practice prelims MCQs on daily current affairs. Let us discuss these articles one by one now. First article on page number 6, fresh stirring on federalism as a new politics. The context here is that there is a new, let's say, impetus, or the idea of third federal front is once again gaining political traction, or we can say how to forge the political consensus on federalism. This is actually the context of this article. Recently, we have seen the assembly elections and how regional parties won the elections of state assemblies. For example, West Bengal and Tamil Nadu specifically, as well as Kerala, right. So these three states, we can understand the regional parties, or we can say those parties which are not in power at the central government. So to some extent this is let's say going to lead, or let's say recently there was one meeting under Sharad Pawar of the opposition parties, these regional parties. So there is some kind of consensus that is going on to create a third front, or we can say the opposition to the central ruling party, we can say. Okay, so we have to understand here not from the political perspective, but from the constitutional perspective, or the concept of federalism. Okay, so federalism, here we can understand that whenever there is a division of powers between different units of the government at, let's say, central level, state level, or regional level, right. So that is called as federalism or federal state. Okay, so yes, India, we adopted this federalism concept. Our Indian constitution has many such federal features. Like for example, 7th schedule of Indian constitution provides for different lists wherein the exclusive powers for central and state governments are given, right. So such federal provisions are there in Indian constitution. And how federalism worked since independence, first thing, let us try to understand that aspect. Federalism has rarely been an axis of political mobilization. That means, except the State Reorganization Act, except the State Reorganization Act 1956, that saw a huge political mobilization on the issue of federalism, formation of new states on linguistic basis or other such basis, right. So except this movement, there is no such political mobilization happened on the issues of federalism. Even during the coalition government or coalition era, we call it as, since 1990s to 2014, this is around 20 to 25 years of coalition government. This also has not resulted into the focus on federal aspects, centralization of the administration, centralization of the finance. All this resulted into in the coalition era also. So we can understand that the political mobilization on the issue of federalism has not been there since independence. Okay, so this is the experience that we are having. And then what are the issues in forging the political consensus on federalism in India? Let us try to understand these issues. First of all, there is some kind of, let's say, national rhetoric on nationalism created by the ruling party at the center, right. So nationalism is more important than federalism. This kind of picture is being created since 2014 by the ruling party at central government, and we should be aware about such rhetoric. Nationalism, right. So national issues are more important. For example, defense of the country, then Indian economy, foreign relations. So all these big issues which are concerning whole India, they are given more importance rather than the federal issues which are the states and their powers are required. So that's why the states are not able to focus on creating a political consensus on federal issues, because nationalism has again the more interest of the people in the country. This is the first hurdle, we can say. The second hurdle, it is saying that the central government itself used federalism as contingency rather than norm. Okay, from time to time federalism has been bypassed by the central government, not given importance, and whenever required, it was given importance. For example, when the GST Council was going to be established, central government approached state governments. They got the confidence of state government to amend the constitution. This is how we have to understand that the central government, whenever it required some kind of support of state governments, then it implemented federal provisions. But whenever it wanted the centralization of powers, that resulted into bypassing of federal provisions. Okay, for example, we can give the example like there is no political consensus on various local issues. For example, when there was reorganization of Jammu and Kashmir state, the other regional political parties did not, let's say, build a consensus with those political parties in Jammu and Kashmir. The same example we can see recently, the National Capital Territory Act that was amended, and the Amendment Act 2021 was passed by the Parliament, curtailing the powers of state government, state assembly, and other political parties, regional parties did not have the consensus with the AAP government on this. So this is actually the issues. So regional issues, local issues, these are not resulting into building the consensus here. Now, the third aspect we have to understand that within the states itself, there is some kind of divergence in development levels, economic and development levels, divergence in economic and development levels, economic growth and development levels among the states itself. Almost in every economic and development indicators, southern and western states are far ahead than the northern and eastern states. Okay, and this created some kind of divergence between these states. The rich and advanced states, southern and western states, they are not ready to share their resources with the northern and eastern states. Along with that, such kind of, let's say, crisis emerged when there was discussion on the issue of 15th Finance Commission. When this 15th Finance Commission was asked to create a formula for sharing the resources on the basis of population criteria from the census 2011 rather than the earlier 1971 criteria. Then the southern states and western states opposed this criteria. Why? Because they have been able to control the population in the states as compared to the northern and eastern states. So they thought that they will lose upon the revenue sharing here, right? So such kind of issues are already, let's say, creating the problem in cooperation among different states on the federal issues. Okay, so yes, these are the important issues where the political consensus on the federalism in India cannot be forged, and therefore what should be the way forward here? As a way forward, you can mention that the advanced states need to share their resources with backward, or we can say poor states, some of the poor states. This should be there, then only the consensus will be built. The second aspect we have to understand is interstate platforms should be explored for further discussion and deliberation on the federal issues. Recently, such kind of, let's say, platforms emerged whenever 15th Finance Commission, just now we discussed that issue emerged, all these regional parties came together to discuss that issue. Then there was, let's say, GST compensation issue was there, all these parties which are suppose, let's say, not the ruling party at the center, they came together and then they discussed on this issue. So such platforms should be developed and strengthened by these states so as to discuss the federal issues, and then only we can understand that the federal aspects of Indian Constitution, federal provisions of Indian Constitution will be implemented effectively, and the central government will be obliged to implement those provisions. This is how we have to discuss this particular article. Okay, so if you read this article, you will find this to some extent having political overtones, but try to understand, we have to take inputs from the GS2 paper polity part here. What are the issues regarding the federal issues, we can say federalism. Fine? Okay. Any question regarding this? Okay. So let us move on to next article. Yes, like zonal councils. Yes, zonal councils are also there, and yes, zonal councils can be explored, but you have to understand zonal councils are having some kind of, let's say, regional aspect, like southern council is there, so southern states only are there, right? So generally these councils use let's say used to yes, interstate council is correct, we can say, but again let me tell you that interstate council is headed by the central government. Okay, so I was talking about some informal platforms, because this is some kind of political aspect, right? So informal platforms can be built up here. As we can understand, interstate council is whatever the agenda on interstate council is, that is decided by the central government. Okay, so that we can keep aside. Zonal council is fine, but we can say that those informal platforms can be built and strengthened to discuss these federal issues by the regional parties, we can say. Okay, so that to create the political consensus on these federalism issues. Fine? Okay. Yes. So now we can discuss the second article here. Vacancies send a wrong signal. Okay, so earlier I wanted to tell that those who are having political science optional subject, the first article is important for them. Okay, political science. Now this is important for public administration optional also. Vacancies send a wrong signal, right? So yes, it is having the context that many such statutory bodies and constitutional bodies remain headless for long period of time, and it sends a very wrong signal. So article is discussing on that aspect. Effects of delays in promotions and appointments. So what happens here when many such organizations remains headless? So it has some deleterious effects. First of all, negative effect on overall working of organization. Efficient working will not be there. It reduces productivity of the organization, overall organization. Third thing we have to understand, it affects governance, as people are not getting the service, quality of service, or delayed services will be there. So it affects overall governance also because of all this. And fourth thing we have to understand, it has some negative impact on morale of civil servants, bureaucrats, senior bureaucrats, we can say that, who are supposed to get promotions to these positions. They are actually waiting for promotions to these positions, and when they remain vacant for long period of time, actually it demoralizes civil servants or bureaucrats. So such kind of effects, 3-4 points, directly you can enlist them whenever in question is asked. Now after writing these effects, let us understand or know about the examples of such vacancies. The article mentions such 3-4 examples. For example, the head or the chairman of NHRC. This position remained vacant since December 2020. Yes, lack in capacity, or we can say capacity. So yes, that affects because of delay in the appointment of these processes. Now let us understand the chairman of NHRC since December 2020 to June 2021, this position remained vacant. Then the head of CBI, from time to time The even Supreme Court had to tell the government to appoint the head of CBI, and recently the chairman of CBI, director of CBI has been appointed. Okay, so it remained for long period of time headless, and additional charges were given as a director to different personalities. Then NCRT, National Council or Educational Research and Training. NCRT, a very important body for school curriculum design framework. So yes, this NCRT remains headless now also since November 2020. Okay, so such organizations remained, let's say, even we can say that the Election Commission of India. So here CEC retired in April when there were state assembly elections were going on. So it remained two member body for 1 or 2 months. Later on, one election commissioner was appointed recently. Okay, so when it remains 2 member body, whenever there is conflict between these 2 members, then the final decision becomes the problem, because this is again the consensus based body. 3 members, multi-member body, 3 members, they take decision on the consensus, or we can say rather than consensus, we can say majority, not consensus, majority. Okay, so this again we can say that created problem here. So try to give such 3-4 examples whenever we are writing. Okay. Yes. What kind of practices you are saying here? Yes, can you tell me? So are you saying that it is a lack of transparency in the appointment process that created distrust between the government and people? Yes, fulfilling the vacancies. Yes, lack of governance already we can understand that it creates the trust deficit here. So yes, fulfilling the vacancies, that aspect you can also mention here. Okay, so examples, you can mention these 2-3 examples. Now the article also talks about case study of reforms in appointment process of CEC and ECs. Now you should be aware about the present mechanism of appointment. Presently this CEC and EC is appointed by the president, and this appointment process is opaque. How this central government appoints chief election commissioner and election commissioner, what is the qualification criteria? So there is no committee of experts or any panel is established. So there is lack of transparency. No objective criteria is there for appointment process, and therefore it creates some kind of trust deficit here. And recently Association of Democratic Reforms, ADR, which is NGO, non-profit organization, it has submitted PIL in Supreme Court regarding the appointment process of CECs and SEs and those reforms, and it provides for basis of 255th report of Law Commission. 255th report of Law Commission, which says that the appointment should be done by on the recommendation of committee, 3-member committee headed by Prime Minister. Then there is CJI, Chief Justice of India, and leader of opposition. Leader of opposition in Lok Sabha. Okay, so this 3-member committee, in this report such kind of, let's say, suggestion is given. Okay, so you can give the references to Law Commission report whenever we are talking about reforms needed in the appointment process of CEC and ECs. Fine. So yes, this is one part. Then you can talk about the way forward. So in way forward, the major thing you can write here is that there should be some time limit, fixed time limit, you can say that, within which the appointments to these bodies should be, let's say, conducted by the government. At the same time, we can talk about, let's say, prior appointments. That means we know that which chairman or which head of the body is going to retire when already it is decided. So then why the prior appointments or appointments in advance, why they are not being done? This should be done. Okay, so whenever a person or the chairman of NHRC suppose going to get retired in next month, so 1 month before itself such, let's say, selection of next chairman should be done by the government, and this shows the let's say prudency on the part of government, and then we can say that the governance will be a continuation process. At present what is happening, because of these vacancies there is some kind of breaks in the governance process. Governance is not on the continuation basis because of these vacancies. Okay, so yes, you can mention such fixed time limit, or let's say 1 month before you can mention such time limit itself, the appointment process should happen. Fine. So yes, simple question can be there. Vacancies in the central government and states in recent years had deleterious effect on governance. Elucidate. Now this command of the question, elucidate, that means explain with examples, okay, or references. So you need to mention compulsorily these examples just now we talked about, okay, while explaining this. When we are giving the, let's say, deleterious impact on governance, you should mention the references. For example, when we talk about the NCERT, you talk about like how it impact on the school education, the curriculum development, and you should mention that this body is headless since last 6 months. Okay, so this is very important in this command. Fine. Any question regarding this? Okay, now next, prelims related articles. Ethiopia resumes filling disputed dam. Okay, so this is important from geography perspective, location of this dam, but what the article is talking about at present, what is issue? Yes, Ethiopia has started second phase of filling the mega dams reservoir on the upper Blue Nile river. Basically it is talking about GERD, Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Okay, so this dam is being built across Blue Nile river in Ethiopia, and the conflict because of this is going on between Ethiopia and Egypt and Sudan, which are, let's say, lower riparian states or downstream states. Now this huge dam, which is going to be Africa's largest hydroelectric project, when completed, sparked almost decade-long diplomatic standoff between Addis Ababa, that is Ethiopia's capital, and downstream nations Egypt and Sudan. Now, what are the arguments? Arguments is that the Ethiopia says project is essential for its development. However, Egypt, the Cairo is capital, the Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, fear that it could restrict their citizens' water access. Yes, to some extent these arguments are, or these concerns are also true. Because of building such huge hydroelectricity project, the reservoir, obstruction in the flow of river will happen, and the flow of water, the river flow or the amount of water flowing through these countries will reduce, affecting the supply of water to the citizens of these countries. Okay, so yes, again we have to understand the location of this dam. Yes, everyone, you can look into the atlas, you can see the physical map of African continent. Physical map of African continent, open that, you can see the Egypt, Sudan and Ethiopia, these three countries, and you can see the Blue Nile river originating at Lake Tana. This is Lake Tana, and it is flowing like this. At this particular location here in Ethiopia, the GERD is being built, Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, and then the river flows into Sudan, and in Sudan here the White Nile is flowing like this, and here there is confluence of Blue Nile and White Nile together. Now it will be called as Nile River, flowing through the Sudan and Egypt countries and then flowing into Mediterranean Sea. Okay, so you should be aware about the location also, like Blue Nile River. Fine. There are some environmental concerns also, like changes in the river ecology. Already severe pollution of Nile river is there. So because of that, when it reduces the ecological flow of any river, that affects again further the pollution levels and overall ecosystem of the river. Okay, so these are ecological concerns and the concerns of Sudan and Egypt regarding water supply to its citizens. Okay, now yes, you can see here the 6,450 megawatt hydropower project in Ethiopia. This is going to be the largest hydroelectric project in Africa. Now, location of river, Nile river, and some basic knowledge. You can see the Nile river has its two head streams, White Nile river and Blue Nile river. Basically, Nile river generally origin, we call it as origin of White Nile river from Lake Victoria. You can see the Lake Victoria here, the location, and then it is moving from Uganda to South Sudan and then entering Sudan. Blue Nile river from Lake Tana here, entering from Ethiopia to Sudan like this, and then there is confluence. Together it will be called as now Nile river, right? The flow is from south to north direction. It flows into Mediterranean Sea, not Red Sea. It flows into Mediterranean Sea. I believe everyone is referring to your atlas. You can see the locations. Now Nile river is the longest river in the world. Okay, so you should be aware about that also, and the flow is from south to north of this river. Okay, fine. Now, Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights. Do not get confused with United Nations Human Rights Council, UNHRC, and Office of Human Rights or Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights. Let us find the difference here. Office of High Commissioner for Human Rights, or it is also called as United Nations Human Rights Office. It is Department of Secretariat of United Nations that works to promote and protect human rights that are guaranteed under international laws and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948. Okay, it promotes and protects human rights which are given under. Office was established by UNGA in 1993 in the wake of World Conference on Human Rights that happened in 1993. So it was established in 1993. It acts as a secretariat. It acts as a secretariat of Human Rights Council, that is United Nations Human Rights Council, which is located in Geneva, headquarter in Geneva, Switzerland. Okay, so this is a completely different organization, and this Office of High Commissioner is a part of United Nations Secretariat. Okay, it is part of United Nations Secretariat, but it also acts as a secretariat to UNHRC. Fine. So yes, the office is headed by High Commissioner for Human Rights. Along with that, the High Commissioner is ex officio member of Committee of UNDG, that is United Nations Development Group. Fine. So this much basic information about this High Commissioner office is important. Why this is in news? Because on the first page, this particular office has raised the concern regarding the arrest of those aged activists in Bhima Koregaon case. Okay, Bhima Koregaon violence that happened few years back. Okay, so that's why the concerns regarding human rights of those activists. Recently, one of the activists died, we can say because of the ill health of the activist. So yes, we will not go into details of that aspect, that is not relevant here for our examination, but if it is some kind of relevance in any further article appears on editorial page in future, we will discuss that. Okay, yes. Now moving on to next article. Amid cabinet reshuffle buzz, 8 states get new governors. Briefly we will look into which states got new governor. Yes, Hari Babu Kambampati, BJP veteran from Andhra Pradesh, will be governor of Mizoram. So that means Mizoram got new governor. P.S. Sridharan Pillai, Governor of Mizoram transferred and appointed as Governor of Goa. That means earlier Governor of Mizoram is now the Governor of Goa. Then Satyadev Narayan Arya, the Governor of Haryana, transferred and appointed as Tripura Governor. Then Ramesh Bayas, the Governor of Tripura, transferred and appointed as Governor of Jharkhand. Okay, so and last Bandaru Dattatreya, Governor of Himachal Pradesh, transferred and appointed as Haryana Governor. And Mangubhai Patel will be the Governor of Madhya Pradesh. And Rajendra Arlekar will be the Governor of Himachal Pradesh. So these are the new appointments. You should be just aware that which states got new governor. Which states got new governor. Fine. So we know that the governor is the constitutional head of state, or we can say that de jure head of any state. De jure means nominal, de facto means real. Okay, de facto head is chief minister, we know this, right? So this is nominal head of the state, ceremonial position we can say. However, the governor that is appointed by the president for 5-year term, 5-year term is there, but he is at the pleasure, he is appointed at the or we can say the position is at the pleasure of president. President can remove him at any time or transfer to the other state also as a governor. Now the governor of any state can be acting as a governor of one or more states and union territories also. Okay, so these are the provisions regarding the governor. There are other such provisions like powers, legislative powers, administrative powers and all this. There is huge, let's say, information, but I would ask you to refer to M. Lakshmikant governor chapter, where we are learning about state executives. Okay, state executives, Bart the governor here. Fine? Okay. Now try to attempt this question and please give the answers. Option B. B for Bombay. Okay. Other students? B for Bombay. Yes. Yes, Ali Hussain? B. Everyone is saying B. Let us find out. Okay, so it is talking about this dam. GERD dam is being built across the Blue Nile River. We have to find the correct statement. Yes, Blue Nile River, first statement is correct. Now, Blue Nile and White Nile merges in South Sudan to form Nile River. This is incorrect statement. It is not South Sudan, merges in Sudan. These are two countries, you should be aware. That's why I was telling you look into Atlas. Sudan and south of Sudan is South Sudan. Okay, so the merging of White Nile River and Blue Nile River happens in Sudan. If you can see here again, let me tell you, show you this map. You can see here, this is Sudan and this is South Sudan. This is Sudan, this is South Sudan. White Nile River flows through South Sudan, enters into Sudan and then meets Blue Nile, and together it will be called as Nile River. Okay, so you should be very careful. Actually, for your confusion itself, we have framed this statement. Okay, so in examination also they will confuse you like this, right? So South Sudan is not correct. So second statement is incorrect here. Third statement, Nile River flows into Red Sea. No, it flows into Mediterranean Sea. Right, so this is also incorrect statement. So what should be the answer here now? One only. That is A should be the answer. Fine? Okay. So yes, these were important articles from today's The Hindu newspaper. Any question regarding these articles?
So, federalism will not able to, political parties will be the only federalism option, but they will not encourage the internal encouragement in the local parties. Then how we can able to develop the federalism in India?
Yes, it will happen. See, because federalism or federal provisions are constitutional provisions. Even if the politics or political consensus is not there, the Supreme Court from time to time will implement the federal provisions or ask the central government, or if it is breaching the federal provisions mentioned in the constitution, then Supreme Court will declare them as null and void. Okay.
So, most of the states will not establishing the human rights commission. So, even example AP, sir, AP does not have the human rights commission office. Then if we give the federalism more like, if we are encouraging the federalism to the state, they will declare as a self-dictator, they will not constitute some important institutions for the benefit of the people. Sir. Then how we can say the federalism is a good for society and people, sir? Because given as a federalism to state, they will act as a dictate. Even example as a South Indian, some states does not constitute the human rights commission officer.
No. Yes. See, try to understand. Our constitution is not strictly federal constitution. Okay, not strictly federal constitution like US constitution. In US, what happens is states are more powerful than the center basically, because there is strict separation of power. But however, in India there is some kind of, let's say, unitary bias, federation with unitary bias is there. That means central government has some more powers as compared to the states in the constitution itself, and that was needed from time to time even after independence and today also to ensure the integrity and unity of the country. So we need to focus on further decentralization and implementation of the federal provisions. Okay, because this has been the process. Through the 73rd, 74th amendments, we have decentralized governance. Again, we have to understand that when the states are not given power, then the appropriate governance will not be there, because central government will surely only focus on the central issues largely. Like, okay, so the major issues which are concerned for the overall country. So if we want the development at grassroots level, federal aspect should be implemented in letter and spirit. In this manner we have to understand. Okay? Fine? Okay, then let us stop today. We will meet tomorrow at the same time. Thank you.
Contact us to avail the combo offer of General Studies and Public Administration optional with 20% discount.